There were exactly 3 cars in the parking lot. Hers, mine, and his. I remember the puddles reflecting the orange streetlight and how the wind kept swinging the rusted security sign like it was mocking me. Somewhere in the distance, a grocery cart slammed into a metal fence. I didn't flinch. I couldn't. My hands were already frozen on the steering wheel. She was standing outside the pharmacy talking to him like he was the best part of her day. Laughing, not the kind that slips out of politeness, but the kind that echoes. The kind that used to belong to me. I didn't get out. Just stared. I wasn't even angry. I was empty. She didn't see me until he touched her shoulder. Something in her posture shifted. Her head turned slightly, just enough to break the spell between them. And in that second, like the universe peeled open, she looked straight at me. There were no screams. No running. Just her mouth slowly parting. She whispered my name. The glass fogged as I exhaled, and outside the wind howled so loudly I never heard the sound. But I saw it. She stepped forward, then paused. He didn't follow her. She was alone now. In the rain. Soaking. Shivering. Staring at the man she married who hadn't moved in 7 minutes. The passenger door was locked. I made sure of it. When she reached for the handle, I reversed fast. Not recklessly. Just with a decision she never expected from me. I watched her vanish in the rearview, just a blur of soaked hair, confusion, and regret. I didn't go home. I didn't drive far, either. I parked at the old baseball field, turned off the headlights, and finally let it hit me. I'd been losing her long before that night. And all it took was one storm, one look, and one name on her lips, mine, for me to finally realize. She never planned to come back. I didn't go back to the house for 2 nights. I slept in the car behind an old, boarded-up antique shop off Alder Street. Nobody bothered me. Not even the cops. Maybe I looked too pitiful to approach a man in a fogged-up sedan, parked beneath a flickering streetlight, staring at nothing, chewing the inside of his cheek like it owed him answers. I lived off vending machine crackers and gas station coffee that smelled like burnt rubber. And the whole time I kept checking my phone, not to text her, not to call, but to stare at the blank screen. As if I was expecting something. As if she'd apologize before I had to ask what she'd done. She didn't. On the 3rd night, I drove past the house slowly. The porch light was off. That small detail hit me harder than I expected. She never turned that light off. Not even when we were broke and counting every bulb. She used to say, the porch light tells people someone's waiting. But now it was dark. When I finally went inside, the air felt too clean. Her coat was missing. Her shoes were gone. A stack of mail sat untouched on the hallway table, but one envelope had been opened. It was mine, addressed from the power company. She'd opened my mail. That wasn't like her. Not unless she was searching for something. I walked to the kitchen. Half a glass of red wine on the counter. Lipstick smudged on the rim. And an empty mug in the sink with traces of black coffee. I stared at it for a long time because she never drank coffee at night. Only when she had trouble sleeping. So what was keeping her up? The next morning, I called in sick for work, first time in years. I sat in my office, surrounded by unopened boxes of things I never unpacked, and scrolled through her social media. Nothing new. No posts. No tags. Just the same polished version of herself she always curated, witty captions, golden hour selfies, and one specific picture that stopped me cold. It was from 2 weeks earlier. She was sitting on a bench in front of the Riverstone Library. In the background, reflected faintly in the window, was him. The man from the pharmacy. He wasn't posing. He wasn't even close. But there he was, holding a phone and smiling toward her like he'd said something funny just before she snapped the pic. She'd cropped him out barely. But not well enough. I zoomed in until the image blurred into colored blocks. My chest tightened. My mouth went dry. Then I remembered something. A name she mentioned weeks ago during one of her careless monologues about her day. A client. A sweet guy with a dog named Button. She laughed about the name. Said the guy reminded her of someone from college. Then moved on. I never thought twice about it. Now I did. The more I thought, the more the little inconsistencies began to unravel like threads from a sweater I didn't know was fraying. The extra gym bag in the trunk that she said belonged to her sister. The out-of-town work training where she came back without the cheap hotel shampoo samples she always hoarded. The credit card charge for Osprey Hill Lodge, a place we never visited together. I didn't ask her about any of it. I couldn't. Instead, I wrote her a note. Just 3 words, you closed it. I left it on her pillow, walked out the door, and drove again, nowhere special. Just moving because staying still made it worse. Later that evening, the sky opened up. It wasn't just rain. It was violent, twisting, sharp-edged rain, the kind that feels personal. I pulled over into the same parking lot where I first saw her with him. And then I did something weak. Something pathetic. I got out and stood in it. Soaked through. Shoes full of water. Shoulders tight. I wanted her to see me again. Just once. Not because I wanted revenge. Not even answers. Just to know if she'd flinch. And then, there she was. Running toward the pharmacy from the other side. No umbrella. Purse over her head. And alone. No one else in sight. She stopped dead when she saw me. And then, just like before, her lips moved. She whispered my name. But this time, her eyes were full of something different. Panic. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I let the rain soak through my collar and drip down my back. Joelle took 2 slow steps toward me, her lips still parted like she'd been caught mid-sentence. The streetlight flickered overhead, casting a weird glow on her face. She looked smaller than usual. Wetter. Realer. Like all the layers of confidence had been washed off her. She stopped 3 feet in front of me. I could smell her perfume through the storm. Same citrus pine blend that used to drive me insane, now it just felt like a lie in liquid form. You're not supposed to be here, she finally said, voice barely audible over the wind. I wanted to say something. Anything. But my throat had closed up. I had questions, thousands, but they piled up like traffic at a red light, unmoving, suffocating. So I asked the only one that slipped out. Are you in love with him? She blinked. That blink, that long, slow, guilty blink, told me more than I was ready to hear. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said. It wasn't supposed to be like this. What was it supposed to be? I asked, my voice cracking on the last word. Fun? A detour. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Please, she whispered. I turned and walked to my car. I didn't slam the door. Didn't scream. I just drove. Not away from her, away from the version of myself that thought love meant endurance. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark with the hallway light on and thought about every moment I'd ignored. Every time I thought silence was strength. Around 4:30 a.m. I got up and started cleaning. It wasn't logical. I just needed to do something with my hands before my thoughts swallowed me whole. I emptied drawers. Wiped down counters. Pulled out garbage bags and filled them with old magazines and receipts. That's when I found it. At the bottom of the kitchen trash, under coffee grounds and torn-up grocery lists, was a thin, crumpled slip of paper. Damp and stained but still legible. A receipt. 2 wine glasses. 1 charcuterie board. 1 night at Osprey Hill Lodge. Her name wasn't on it. But his was. In loopy, confident handwriting, for Joe. See you soon, Em. I stared at that piece of paper until my hands shook. Then I folded it neatly, put it in a Ziploc bag, and tucked it into the top drawer of my desk, not for revenge. Not for evidence. I needed to know I hadn't imagined it. The next day, she acted like nothing had happened. She came home with groceries, hummed while she unpacked, and even asked if I wanted to go out to dinner that weekend. I nodded just to see what she'd do. She smiled like we were fine. But that's when I realized something terrifying. She wasn't even lying anymore. She didn't need to. Because in her mind, the damage had already been done. She thought I was too weak to leave. Too soft to confront her. Too passive to do anything except wait until it faded. That night, I looked at her while she slept. Peacefully. On her side like always, hugging the pillow I bought her for our anniversary. And I knew. She'd already said goodbye. Now it was my turn. But I wasn't going to slam the door. I wasn't going to shout or throw plates or tell the neighbors what she did. I was going to leave in a way she'd never expect. Quietly. With all the things she forgot to protect. The day I decided to leave her, I didn't pack a bag. I didn't write a letter. I didn't even take my toothbrush. What I took was her second phone. I hadn't meant to find it. I wasn't even looking. I was dusting behind the radiator in the spare bedroom, the one we never used anymore, the one she said felt off after the neighbor's cat died under our porch. There was a shoebox behind the curtains. I thought maybe it was old Christmas lights. But it wasn't. Inside, neatly hidden beneath a stack of fabric samples and expired coupons, was a silver iPhone wrapped in a sock. No case. No lock screen. No password. I stared at it for 10 minutes without touching it. Then I pressed the side button. The screen lit up with a dozen missed notifications. All from one name. M. No last name. No emojis. No context. Just fragments of a conversation I wasn't supposed to see. Don't forget Friday. Same room. I booked it early. I miss the way you breathe when you're nervous. Don't say anything stupid to him. 1 more week. I stood there holding that phone like it was radioactive. My knees went weak. I had to sit on the edge of the bed. The air suddenly felt heavier, like the house itself was trying to push me out. I scrolled. No photos. No saved numbers. Just texts. Dozens of them. Some going back almost a year. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't new. This wasn't a recent mistake. This was a long-term plan. While I'd been trying to fix us, she'd been building a second version of herself. One with hotel keys. One with lies rehearsed well enough to sound like truth. One with contingency plans and 2 toothbrushes and receipts I was never supposed to find. I took the phone and drove. Not to confront her. Not yet. I needed time. Space. A way to breathe without fogging up the inside of my own head. I parked outside a library downtown and sat for hours, just reading every message again, over and over, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. Not where she had, I already knew that. I wanted to know what it was about me that made her stop loving me quietly. What moment made her choose a parallel life instead of saving the one she had? And then the final message came in. Right in front of me on that phone. No lock. No barrier. You didn't tell him yet? You said you would. Don't wait until the last minute. He'll break. He's not built for that. Me. That's how they talked about me. Like I was a fragile lamp made of cheap glass. That night, I went home calm. Too calm. I cooked dinner. Cleaned the kitchen. Washed her favorite mug and left it out for her in the morning. I even watered the plant she always forgets. She didn't notice a thing. She came in late, like always, said she had a budget meeting with a client and her phone had died. The second phone was in my coat pocket the entire time. I smiled. She kissed my cheek. We watched one episode of some show I don't even remember the name of. Then we went to bed. I didn't touch her. I didn't even look at her once the lights went out. Because by then, I wasn't trying to understand her anymore. I was preparing her absence. It was a Tuesday morning when everything cracked. Not exploded, cracked. Like a windshield spidering slowly from the inside, invisible to anyone unless they know where to look. I was sitting in the kitchen, pouring coffee into her mug, the one with the faded writing that said, "But first, coffee, a gift from me," back when we used to laugh over dumb things like that. I didn't hear her come downstairs. She was dressed for work. Hair curled. Subtle lipstick. Not dressed for work, dressed for someone she wanted to impress. And then I heard her say it. Under her breath, to herself, like she was reading a reminder from a calendar only she could see. Room 219. Keys and purse. She froze mid-step, realizing she'd spoken it out loud. But I didn't move. Didn't react. I was stirring sugar into her cup like I hadn't heard a thing. Say that again? I asked gently. She blinked. What? What you just said. I didn't say anything. I looked up and met her eyes. And in that half second, I saw it. Panic. Not guilt. Not regret. Panic, like someone realizing they'd forgotten to lock the back door before leaving for vacation. Then she smiled. Tilted her head slightly. You must have imagined it. I almost laughed. But instead, I handed her the mug. Be safe, I said. It's slick out there today. She thanked me. Kissed my cheek. And left. The second the door shut, I sprinted upstairs. I didn't know what I was looking for. Her purse was gone, of course. But I knew she had a second bag, a tote she kept in the hallway closet, the one she claimed was full of scarves. I pulled it down, dumped it on the bed, and there it was. A black envelope. Thick paper. No logo. Inside, a keycard. Osprey Hill Lodge. Room 219. And a note scribbled fast, almost recklessly. Park behind the lodge. Don't use the front. See you at 6. It was from him. His handwriting again. I stood there, shaking. Then I checked the timestamp on the envelope seal. That detail, as something most people would never think to look at, showed the truth. She had prepped it the night before, while I lay beside her in the same bed. By 5:45 p.m., I was parked a block away from Osprey Hill Lodge, across from a convenience store with faded signs and a single flickering light over the entrance. I waited, and then at exactly 6:02, her car rolled in. She did park behind the building. She did wear the coat she said she lost last month. She did walk toward room 219 like she'd done it 100 times before. She never looked over her shoulder. Never hesitated. Not once. I waited 5 minutes. Then I walked in the front entrance, holding a small brown bag with 2 sodas inside so I'd look like a guest. No one stopped me. No cameras. No receptionist. Just quiet hallways and dim lights that buzzed like an old motel. I found the room. I didn't knock. I didn't even touch the door. Instead, I slipped the second phone, the one I had taken from the shoebox, inside the crack beneath the door with the screen already recording, just enough to catch their voices. Then I walked away, back to the parking lot, back to my car. I didn't even know what I was going to do with the recording. I wasn't planning to confront them. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want justice. I just wanted truth. Raw, cold, unfiltered. And I got it. When I played the file later that night, their voices were muffled at first, then clearer. You sure he suspects nothing? He's not like that. He doesn't think that way. He still believes we're in a weird phase. Laughter. So what happens when you leave him? Depends. I need to make it clean. No mess. He's the kind of guy who collapses, not explodes. So no damage. Exactly. He'll vanish. That's what he does. He disappears when he breaks. I paused the recording. I don't remember breathing for a full minute. They weren't just cheating. They were predicting my collapse. Planning my emotional breakdown like it was strategy. I closed the file. Backed it up in 3 places. Locked the second phone in a drawer. Then I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. Not for the lies, not for the pain, but to see if I recognized the man they thought would disappear quietly. And for the first time, I didn't, because that man was already gone. The plan didn't come all at once. It was like fog slowly lifting from the edge of a lake. Not a sharp epiphany, but a realization formed over hours of stillness. I wasn't going to scream, break dishes, or walk in on them with a camera. That's what they expected. They'd already rehearsed that version of me in their heads. So I decided to vanish before they finished their script. It started with the bank. Joelle and I shared everything financially, accounts, passwords, even a mutual budget app she swore by. But what she didn't know was that I'd set up a dormant savings account 3 years ago. It was originally for her birthday trip to Maine. I never used it. It had over $8,000 in it now. I transferred the money into a new account under a different credit union, opened in my middle name, linked to a P.O. box I had rented that morning using my work badge and a smile. Next came the job. I spoke to HR under the guise of taking a sabbatical for mental clarity. They didn't ask questions. I was one of the quiet ones, always early, never complained. I told them I'd be unreachable for 3 weeks. They nodded and handed me a form. Then I sold the car. Not mine, hers. It was registered under my name, bought with my credit because her score was still a mess from some impulse furniture disaster in her 20s. She never changed the paperwork. I listed it online as priced for fast sale and met the buyer an hour later. Cash only. No questions. I signed the title and walked home. Joelle texted me that evening asking if I'd moved her car. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Which car? She didn't respond for 6 hours. When she got home, her expression was glassy. She didn't explode, didn't accuse. She just looked at me like I'd shifted in shape, like I was no longer playing the part she wrote for me. I had a weird day, she finally said, pouring a drink. You good? Yeah, I said, just getting rid of what doesn't serve me anymore. She smiled, a nervous one, the kind that flickers behind the eyes. That night I didn't sleep. Not because of grief, I was past that. I didn't sleep because the version of me she thought she could break had already started dissolving. And something quieter, colder, was growing in his place. The next morning, she was gone before sunrise. Her message said, "Early meeting. Back by noon. Let's talk later." I didn't answer. Instead, I packed. Not in suitcases. That would be obvious. I used 3 cardboard boxes. One for clothes. One for documents. One for objects I didn't want her touching again. The photo album. The compass from my grandfather. My late mom's earrings she wore once and never gave back. Then I walked down to the storage unit I'd rented 2 days earlier. Paid in cash. Under an alias. Everything fit perfectly. I kept the key on a chain under my shirt. When I returned home, the house felt thinner, like the walls were starting to realize I wouldn't be inside them much longer. The kitchen smelled of citrus cleaner and forgotten tension. Her mug still sat in the sink. I checked the drawer where I'd kept the second phone. It was gone. I froze. Every drawer. Every cabinet. Nothing. I checked the garbage. Empty. I even ran outside and checked the outside bin. Gone. She had found it. Or at least knew something had been hidden. Maybe she didn't know what it contained, but she knew it was something I wasn't supposed to have. And that meant the clock had started ticking. I waited until dusk. The air was thick with summer humidity and something else, the feeling that everything was about to tip. I sat on the porch with an old beer, the kind I used to drink before I gave it up for her juice cleanses and anti-inflammatory evenings. And then her car pulled up. She wasn't alone. He was in the passenger seat, grinning. I didn't flinch. I didn't run inside. I just stood as she stepped out and slammed the door harder than she meant to. "Can we talk?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Now?" I asked. "Now," she nodded, her jaw tight. "Before this gets worse." I looked at him, the man who'd watched me break down from the comfort of a hotel bed. He didn't speak. He just gave me the kind of smirk that says, this was inevitable. But he had no idea what I had already done. And she was about to find out just how invisible I could truly become. We didn't talk outside. I didn't want the neighbors watching, not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted her to drop the performance. Inside, people can't pretend for long. They lose the mask once the silence stretches. I let them in. No warm greeting. No handshake for him. I just walked into the dining room and sat down at the table like I had invited two strangers to pitch a business deal I already planned to reject. Joel stood across from me, arms folded like a disappointed teacher. He hovered by the kitchen doorway, touching everything. Like he belonged there. Like he thought he would. "I know you found it," she said. I didn't answer. Her voice sharpened. "The phone. The messages. Everything." He finally spoke. "You could have just come to us. Saved yourself some time." I smiled, a small, tight one. "I didn't come to you because I didn't want a confession," I said. "I wanted confirmation." Joel stepped forward. "Then let's just talk. No games. We were going to tell you. This wasn't supposed to be." "That's the second time I've heard that," I cut in. "It wasn't supposed to be. Like you tripped into months of hotel bookings and lies." He tried to speak again, but I raised a finger. "I'm going to say one thing and then I want both of you to leave this house." Quietly. She blinked. He narrowed his eyes. I slid a folder across the table. Inside was a single printout, a screenshot of a legal document. Not a divorce paper. Not even a cease and desist. It was the deed transfer. I had already signed over the house. To my sister. Joelle opened it. Her face twitched. What is this?" "This house isn't in our name anymore," I said calmly. "It's hers. Legally. As of 2 days ago. I used the money from the car to pay the processing fees. Which means, technically, you're trespassing." He laughed, then stopped when I didn't. "You can't be serious." "I am. I'll give you 10 minutes to grab what you can carry." Joelle's face lost all its color. "You're kicking me out?" "You're actually kicking me out." "No," I said, standing slowly. "You already left. I'm just locking the door behind you." She looked at him like he'd have a plan. He didn't. His smirk was gone. He looked exactly how I felt 2 weeks ago, hollow and cornered. I didn't shout. I didn't gloat. I just walked upstairs while they scrambled. Behind me, the house fell quiet again. Like it knew peace was returning. They left. No slammed doors. No screaming match. No desperate apologies shouted into the hallway. Just footsteps, frantic whispering, and the soft clatter of things dropped in a rush. I heard the car start, then nothing but the slow hum of my own breathing. The silence after betrayal isn't quiet. It's full. Heavy. Like the air in a church after someone walks out before the sermon's over. I stayed upstairs for a while, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the space where her bag used to sit, the dent in the carpet where she left her heels. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But there was something cleaner than sadness settling in my chest. Relief. Real, surprising, weightless relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't second-guessing glances or silences or text tones. I wasn't pretending to be happy with someone who already had one foot out the door. I was alone. And it felt like freedom. The next morning, I walked down to the storage unit, loaded everything into a rented van, and drove 2 towns north. Not far, but far enough that no part of her routine would ever bump into mine again. I moved into a small second-floor apartment above a bookstore. The owner, an older man named Everett, gave me a discount after I helped him rewire the front signage. I told him I was starting over. He didn't ask questions. Just offered coffee and silence, the good kind. Weeks passed. Then months. I started waking up before the alarm, not because of anxiety, but because I wanted to. I started walking more. Reading again. Fixing old things for the shop downstairs. Every now and then, a customer would ask if I was the guy who used to be married to Joelle. And I'd just smile and say, not anymore. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name in her handwriting. Inside, one line. You were never the weak one. I just didn't recognize strength unless it looked like control. No apology. No excuses. Just that. I folded it, slipped it into the back of an old book, and left it there. I didn't need closure. I'd already closed the door. Months later, I met someone new. Not in a bar. Not on an app. She ran the flower stall 2 blocks over. Her name was Dana. She had crooked teeth and a soft laugh and asked questions no one else bothered to. She didn't fill the empty spaces Joelle left, she made them irrelevant. And the best part? She didn't smile at me like I was a backup plan. She looked at me like I was a beginning.